Yo, what it is, everybody? Thanks for tuning back in here to another episode here on the Speedbug channel. We got the R1M behind me here, and we are talking about straight up topic I get asked all the time, and it's definitely a question that needs to be answered. Is it worth the money? Do I love it? You know, all that. But the main question is the R1M worth the money? And I'm going to answer this wholeheartedly because I have a lot of other bikes here in my garage in my stable to obviously validate against that as well, against a lot of the other sport bikes that I've had in the past. And you all know this bike coming in right off the gate is definitely not my most favorite brand. And to be honest, it's probably the brand I hate the most, Yamaha. But again, there's a reason why I bought this bike. So let me start off first and foremost. Do I think the bike is worth the money? On a scale of 1 to 10, and I'm going to divide this question into two. Is the bike itself worth the money? For the motorcycle itself, yes. Is the bike itself worth the money of what they're asking for it? For me, it's kind of in the middle. And only solely because of what I intend on planning on 100% doing with the bike. Now, this is a track-orientated bike, and I'm probably not going to track this specific bike because it's just so pretty. I don't want to mess it up, kind of like my V4. And that's exactly why I shouldn't be buying all these bikes, because they end up being so pretty and I don't want to screw them up on the track. But overall, how do I like the bike in itself like that? The bike is great. It has great street manners, and when I start to kind of dip it down and stuff like that, it does flawless. It acts perfectly. And to be honest with you, as much as I love, I would still say my most favorite bike to ride on the street is still my GSXR over here in the corner. Even I like riding this more on the street even than my BMW, even though the BMW is still the all-around most perfect bike. This bike here, I like going into turns and flicking this bike a lot more than I even like doing my V4. Why is that? Well, the bike itself is just so light, and its center of gravity and the way it goes around the corners and it goes into the corners and stuff like that, I really actually like the way this bike rides. Now, this bike actually gets a big gripe because it often is compared to the Ducati V4. And one thing that I ripped apart the V4 for, look at that double negative, the V4 4 was its shitty seat and aggressive ride angle. Now, a lot of other riders, it doesn't matter if it's motorcycle magazines or any other professional rider, when they review this bike, they say there's an extremely aggressive riding position on this motorcycle. I don't think so at all. I think the V4 is way worse than this bike. And I still think the V4 out of all my bikes has got to be the worst. I actually prefer and like to ride this bike a lot on the street. Now, I don't know if that's maybe particular to the big comfy plush seat, the huge wide tank that takes a lot of it off, but I still don't feel as much pressure on my wrists and chest and shoulders as I do on a lot of the other bikes. Not comfortable, obviously, like the GSXR over there in the corner, but I don't mind commuting with this bike actually back and forth to work. And it's actually quite comfortable. But the most favorite thing I still love about this bike is going into turns and really leading this bike, because it feels, to me, and this is my opinion, to me so right. And don't get me wrong, the Duck can do it very well, and so can all of the other bikes, but this bike, I really do enjoy it. And then when you kind of accelerate out of the corners and stuff like that with the Gen 2 electronics and stuff like that, I think Yamaha really killed it and nailed it. The BMW has all of this suspension but Gen 1, and the Duck has Gen 2, but I think Yamaha has it redefined and refined just a little bit better on the Yamaha than the Duck does. But running back to the bike, do I think that it's worth the money? Because it's up there as far as price. It's significantly more than my 959. It's significantly more than my Jigster. It's about the exact same price here as my V4, and pretty much the same price as the BMW once it's fully loaded. So again, you have to ask yourself, is it worth the price? Well, if you're going to use the bike for what it is for and going around the racetracks and stuff like that, given the Gen 2, meaning the 18 and newer with the quick shifter and everything else like that, I absolutely do think it's worth it, especially if you're a Yamaha junkie, because just like how you can be a Suzuki junkie, kind of like myself, you have to kind of classify the fact you believe that it's worth it. And I do really think that it can be worth all of the money. As I mentioned in one of my other videos and such, the one thing that kind of sucks about this bike is the fact that it is entirely almost made of carbon fiber. So you're kind of always like, shit, did I get a nick in it? I don't want anything to happen to it. Even after you clear bra it, this, that, the other, you know, it just kind of sucks, and that's just the nature of the beast of owning it. However, everything else with the bike, I haven't had any hiccups or anything, even post-flash, that I've done everything with this motorcycle. It has absolutely been flawless and hiccup-free. Now, also, I pick on the ducks and stuff for a lot of their malfunctions and stuff like that, about how I think they cut corners and such. They do, because I think they do, but I don't think that Yamaha cut as many corners on this bike as some other manufacturers. Now, before y'all rip me apart on this one, because this is an 18, this bike, remember, came out in 15, and in 15, this bike had all kinds of problems and shit like that. So Yamaha's had about 3 years or so to correct the issues, and now they have everything corrected, from spinning crank bearings to bolts and shit coming loose and everything, as it did on the first one to come out. Because when this one came out, this bike's direct competition was the BMW. And I bought the BMW actually over the Yamaha, because all my buddies were like, oh, you got to get the new Yamaha. And I'm like, nah, forget that Yamaha crap. I'm getting this BMW. And I still have my BMW over here. And the BMW is probably still an all-around better bike, even though it's 3 years older. So, but I still have not had one hiccup about this bike. No complaints, but it's definitely obviously different than all the other bikes, and I still really, really, really do love to ride this bike. So do I think that the bike is absolutely worth the money and for the uniqueness given the M model? Absolutely. And I think that the standard edition model, even though you don't get the electronic suspension, but you do get a lot of other great features. And if you like the flickability of having the Yamaha and the track bike with the cross-plane crank that makes it unique, you know, for 15, 16 grand, I mean, you're right on par at 15, 16 grand as you are with the GSXR 1000R model over there. And that as well goes with the ZX10RR and the CBR. I think it's the Fireblade is their top model. Don't quote me on that off the top of my head. But overall, I really do think that, again, that it's a great bike. I have no complaints, and I plan to continuously ride this bike a lot more, and obviously you all will have a lot more content and stuff with this motorcycle to come, because I know you guys do really enjoy this bike, and the M edition is kind of rare. A lot of people have the R1, not a lot of people have the R1M, and I do think it's a gorgeous design. It's super futuristic. It looks apart from everything else that's kind of really out there, and I really do think that it is absolutely worth the money. So the last and final question that I always get asked is, would I buy it again? And would I do this rather than make a separate video and stuff like that? As long as the Yamaha is as good as this one, and as far as working on it from a mechanical standpoint and looking at it from a mechanic's standpoint, this is far, far better than any of the previous ones that have come out. So if they're like this and they got their shit together and they keep it like this and they don't go back to the way that they used to, absolutely I would grab this bike again. Obviously not this specific one, but the new and improved version when obviously the new one comes out, because as you saw in one of my other videos, I really was nitpicking and really finding a lot of things to try and pull out of the things that I really didn't like about it. And after riding it and having a good amount of miles and such on it now, there's not a lot that I really don't like about it. And the small things that I did pick out, make sure you tune into that video. You can see exactly what I don't like about it. So great bike. Definitely go check one out. The new edition of the Yamaha and the R1M. You guys will like it. If you don't like Yamaha, well, then you probably just won't like it. But that's going to wrap it up here for today's video. If you guys like what you saw, again, Facebook, Instagram, at Speedbug, same name here as YouTube. And we will see y'all for another episode here on the Speedbug channel. Deuces.